All right, here we have Ethereum versus Bitcoin. We'll also do Ethereum versus the dollar as well. And this is going to be a little bit more of a long-term analysis. Long-term, I'm actually long-term bullish on this chart still. I do think that there can very easily be another move down to about 7 million Satoshis base, but I would be looking for big bounces off there. For right now, for charting the weekly, just basically in one massive range that's been going on for almost a full year now. Actually, a full year basically. Highs and lows right there. Obviously, we got our higher lows coming in somewhere right around here. And so any sort of a move back down around here, I actually do look at that as a likely big bounce area. So until then, sideways is the name of the game within this overall range, anywhere above 8.3 million Satoshis. And I am massively macro bullish for moves probably north of 0.1 Bitcoin, that is, or Satoshis, below about 6.6 million Satoshis. And I do look for this one to fall back down towards 5.6 region. Long term though, monthly, I actually still kind of like this. Monthly RSI is getting back in the bullish control zone, it looks like. And quarterly, let's see what we got over here. Not really giving me too much with this, or at least not anything obvious. Maybe a bi-monthly, as that one just closed. Backfill in last bi-monthly open, then I actually would be looking for this one to give another trudge up towards 8.3 million Satoshis. So short term, however, on the daily, I do think that this one is short term down. I think this one does come likely back down towards that 7 million Satoshi region. We see extremely low BBWP right here. Let's see what stochastic momentum says for this one to see if it's on the same side or not, because that would make this a bit of an easier call. Yeah, 5-day stochastic momentum is downside as long as you're below about 7.5 million Satoshis. Daily is going to cross down below 7.27. So technically speaking, I'd like to see it actually close below there, and then I'd be looking for this one to likely come back down somewhere around 7.1 to 7 million even, and I'd be looking for bounces there. Again, it's probably gonna be sideways for a while. If you're looking at the macro, and then long term, actually would kind of be biased towards an upside resolution here. Just probably gonna take its time. Let's go check out Ethereum versus the dollar now and see where this one's at. Yep, this one is still within our overall range, and actually bouncing off of our range lows right there, our nice little blue box. So let me just move this back, and do I think that we bounce a little bit more from here? There might be one more spike, just slightly lower towards about 2650 or so. Then I would be looking for a bounce, but do understand that if that move were to occur, you probably do start to build up some drives of bullish divergence here on the daily. So my point is that if it does have another wick down like this, I do think it's closer to a bounce off of this region right here than not. Short term, I would actually call a pretty big, I'd actually even call like a medium-term reversal above about 2855 on a 4-hour closure, with targets up towards maybe even close to 3,000, or maybe even a little bit north of 3,000, somewhere around 3,000 basically, if that were to happen. Higher term timeframes, I still think that there's general downside risk though. So whether it bounces, up around those targets whether it initiates those targets or not, I do still think that there's general downside risk here. Probably if it is going to find its lows in like a little bit more of a hopium way, similar to Bitcoin, probably somewhere around about 23 to 2400 bucks. Weekly, same thing as well. Yeah. Weekly RSI and 5-day RSI I'm not a big fan of, and I imagine that daily stochastic momentum is downside angle below about 2800, so that's kind of a big number for today. If you see closures below there, I would say continuation before any sort of even a short-term time frame bounce, and that would be around about 2650 or so, probably short-term time frame bounce there. But higher term time frames take over at that point, as the 5-day is still having heavy downside momentum. Also playing out a trend line regression from the last two macro highs, or I wouldn't say macro highs, but weekly highs. And that remains as long as you're below about 3,300. So higher term time frame still pressure down here. And I think generally speaking, probably looking at something like this at best, and then maybe something like that. That'd be kind of like the hopium, similar to Bitcoin. The doomium is that obviously, you break below about 2,300 and you see somewhere down around your June or your last summer lows, maybe even lower than that, towards like 1,400. But here's kind of the hopium if I were to chart it as such. Monthly, which also just closed recently, heavy downside momentum, but can still be looked at as a bit more of a corrective signal here until that macro breakdown actually happens. So for right now, short-term timeframes, see what it can do before the FOMC later. If you do see a closure above about 2855, I would be looking for bounce first towards 2950 to 3000. But barring that, I Again, it's hard to make an analysis on most things today just because of that event over our heads. And there's no way for me to really know what they're going to do there. But generally speaking, I do think that there's more downside risk in the next few weeks than upside potential. Again, 3,000 is kind of my big area. So hopefully that was helpful and there you go for Ethereum.